Hi, everybody. We're excited to let you know that we've added a great show to the CyberWire Podcast Network. Check out Relativity's Security Sandbox, hosted by Amanda Fennell. Security Sandbox is a series of creatively driven conversations about what it takes to solve complex data problems securely. Hear new ideas and approaches tied to increasing an organization's cybersecurity posture with a little fun in the process. A big welcome to Relativity. Welcome to the CyberWire's Research Saturday podcast, brought to you in part by our title sponsor, Collide, endpoint security for teams that's Slack. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the CyberWire's Research Saturday. I'm Dave Bittner, and this is our weekly conversation with researchers and analysts tracking down threats and vulnerabilities, solving some of the hard problems of protecting ourselves in a rapidly evolving cyberspace. Thanks for joining us.
So basically, SysJoker was found during an active attack on a Linux-based web server. And after some research, we found out that SysJoker actually has Mac and Windows versions.
Joining us today are Avigayil, Mechtinger, and Ryan Robinson, both security researchers at Intezer. The research is titled New SysJoker Backdoor Targets Windows, Linux, and MacOS. And now, a word from our sponsor, Collide. Collide sends employees important, timely, and relevant security recommendations for their Linux, Mac, and Windows devices right inside Slack. Collide is perfect for organizations that care deeply about compliance and security, but don't want to get there by locking down devices to the point where they become unusable. Instead of frustrating your employees, Collide educates them about security and device management while directing them to fix important problems. Visit collide.com/TCW to sign up today. That's KOLIDE.com/TCW. And we thank Collide for sponsoring our show. We would also like to thank SpyCloud for their sponsorship. Stolen data circulating on the criminal underground is fuel for data breaches, account takeover, ransomware attacks, and online fraud. Your biggest security risk might be a breach or malware infection outside of your control that leaks the data of your users. SpyCloud constantly recaptures and analyzes new data from the criminal underground, powering solutions that proactively protect over 2 billion employees and consumers worldwide. Learn how to make recaptured data your best defense at spycloud.com/cyberwire. That's spycloud.com/cyberwire. All right, well, let's walk through this together. Can we go through your technical analysis here? What exactly is going on with SysJoker?
Yeah, so I'll mention a few points before I dive into the technical analysis.
That's Avigayil Mechtinger.
So basically, SysJoker masquerades as a system update, and it has persistent capabilities. This means that it can survive reboot on the machine. And based on SysJoker's capability, we assess that the goal of the attack is espionage, and also it has lateral movement capabilities, which might also lead to a ransomware attack as one of the next stages. Now, if we go a bit more technically and high level, so first it will copy itself to a new directory masquerading as something benign on the machine. After that, it will start collecting information of the compromised machine using living off the land commands. For Windows, it's PowerShell. And then it will send the information of the machine to the command and control server as a first handshake. And then it will ping to the command and control server and wait for an instruction. And if there is an instruction, it will parse it and send the response back to the C2. Now, SysJoker has full backdoor capabilities. It can receive two different instructions from the C2, basically. The first one is CMD, which means run a command provided by the attacker and send the response back to the C2. And the second command is exe, which means drop an executable from a provided URL and run it. Okay, this is really in a high level. Now, SysJoker has an interesting way to resolve its C2, its command and control. It will first contact a hard-coded Google Drive URL, which hosts a domain.txt file. And this file contains a base64 decoded address. It will then decode it. It will decode this address with a hard-coded XOR key. Okay, and this key is also used for decoding and encoding strings from within the binary itself, and also data sent and received from the C2. Yeah, Ryan, would you like to continue with some more interesting points about this malware?
So it may just be reiterating what you've said mostly.
Ryan Robinson.
Yeah, when it's first executed on the machine, it will copy itself to a location where it masquerades as something quite benign. So it does, so just like a system update or like a script file. In the Windows version, there is, since Windows malware is quite often better detected through security tooling, it appears to have a first stage that uses PowerShell to sort of drop and execute the SysJoker payload. So it does, but that doesn't exist on the Mac and the Linux versions. What is interesting about the Linux version is that they have sort of made an operational security gaffe, is that they have not stripped the binary. So artifacts of what they actually called the function names and all, they're still in there. And also interesting as well, they have a logging system in place. So what the malware does, it will write this down into like a log, and it kind of assists with analysis a lot, really. So it does. The logging sort of the same in the Mac version, but the functions have been stripped in that. What is also interesting about the Mac version is that it's compiled for a multi-arch. Therefore, we can probably assume that they want that to run on both the Intel versions of Mac and newer Mac machines that have the Apple M1 chip. It has an ARM version packed within that too.
So do you have any insights on how someone would find themselves infected with this? In other words, do we have a sense for who they're targeting and some of the specific ways that they'll get this onto and their target systems?
So in regards to who they're targeting, definitely they have a interest in academical and science institutions. We can see this obviously through the compromised victim that we know of personally and that we've worked with, but also you can see in the domains that they have created. So one of the domains that they've created is called the Hookit Lab, and this is a piece of software that's used by academical institutions, universities, colleges, and all for like facilities management. If you were to see this in your network, it looks like normal academic traffic per se. So it seems to be quite an interest within that field. And also, due to links that have sort of been on Twitter, some other people have given attributions, there appears to be related through passive DNS pivoting. It appears that there's a related file that is a weaponized Microsoft Office Word file that deals with science as well, that may be used as a first stage to deliver the malware. And also through your personal experience, we know that this malware was dropped in another instance through a reverse shell that was spawned through an exploited Apache web server.
What is your advice in terms of folks detecting this and protecting themselves against infection to begin with?
To begin with, there are many security practices. First of all, checking that you're running the most updated systems and best practices of the configurations. It really differs whether you have a server or an endpoint and so on. there are many security practices. So if we're talking about the servers, then what I mentioned, there's this configuration and being updated to the latest services. And if we're talking of endpoint, you can do phishing courses for the employees and so on, complex passwords, and the list goes on. But as for detecting, if you have been compromised, I can loop you back to the blog that we wrote, where we provided detection content, which can really help you searching via your EDR or SIEM really easily. And we also published another blog that explains how with the OS query. So there is information for that as well.
So how widespread is this? And are you seeing that this actor is still active out there, making this an ongoing campaign?
So we have not observed many samples in the wild, and this suggests that the attacks are limited in scope. Actually, the C2 was up and running when we analyzed the files, and it actually changed 3 times during our analysis, which indicated that during our analysis, the attacker was monitoring, was there, was updating its C2. But after the publication, the Google Drive links went down, and I think this kind of shut down some of the samples that we found. It could be that there will be new samples with new Google Drive links that will generate new C2s. It kind of provides them a way to go under the radar when they use this domain of Google. But for the samples that we found now, they don't have the ability to resolve the C2.
Our thanks to Avigayil Mechtinger and Ryan Robinson from Intezer for joining us. The research is titled New SysJoker Backdoor Targets Windows, Linux, and macOS. We'll have a link in the show notes. Thanks to Kolide for their sponsorship. If you have Slack, Kolide is the perfect solution to improve endpoint compliance while educating your employees about device security. Try it out for free at kolide.com/TCW. Thanks also to SpyCloud for their sponsorship. Learn more about how SpyCloud transforms recaptured data to protect your business from account takeover, malware, and ransomware at spycloud.com/cyberwire. The CyberWire Research Saturday is proudly produced in Maryland out of the startup studios of Data Tribe, where they're co-building the next generation of cybersecurity teams and technologies. Our amazing CyberWire team is Elliot Peltzman, Trey Hester, Brandon Karp, Eliana White, Peru Prakash, Justin Sabi, Tim Nodar, Joe Kerrigan, Carol Terrio, Ben Yellen, Nick Valecki, Gina Johnson, Bennett Moe, Chris Russell, John Petrick, Jennifer Iben, Rick Howard, Peter Kilpie, and I'm Dave Bittner. Thanks for listening. We'll see you back here next week.